year at BYU.
Jeez.
And I was the sports director at the NBC station in San Diego. So I did some
good old days. Probably out front of the Hilton Mission Bay.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, where we stayed for the holiday ball. That was the best.
Absolutely. Now, did you guys play Michigan or Missouri?
Well, I'm going to let you believe that I played Michigan for the national championship, but
no.
It was a year later.
Yeah. Well, I remember doing that banquet and introducing you guys and all that stuff. And Schembechner was so pissed off.
Why? Did he want to be somewhere else?
Well, no, he was pissed off because he thought everyone was just there for BYU. He basically said, "Hey, Michigan is in this game." So, all right, let's do this again. I appreciate it. We've got about 10 minutes here. So however time you can give me, that's great.
Great. Glad to help.
All right. Okay. Coming up in 3, 2. Steve, the Buccaneers stand at 8-5, the number 6 playoff spot right now. Yet there appears to be a feeling of not quite there. Do you think this is a playoff team?
Yes, they're going to be a playoff team, and they're going to be a dangerous playoff team. The thing that's been odd is at the beginning of the year, we thought, listen, if Tom is protected, we've got the receivers, we got a back, we've got a defense, we should be fine. All eyes on the offensive line. That was kind of how I had the beginning of the year. Then there was also the part of it that just is getting everyone on the same page. And that's an old adage, but it really isn't really important here, that it takes time. And I saw that about midseason. I'm like, these guys are starting to get it. And once they do, watch out. And I will tell you, Al, it's been a little concerning that it has faltered here in the last half of the season when I thought it would be nothing but up and to the right. And so trying to figure out what's missing, what's not humming the way I thought it would hum. And you saw when Tom is not protected, this is no new news. This is the news from New England days. It's not good. But when he is protected, obviously they're in a pretty good spot, but they're still not as explosive as I thought they would be. And so as they go into the playoffs, that's the real question to my mind. Where's the explosiveness in this offense, and specifically to a vertical passing game? They have a horizontal passing game in my mind. A lot of it's just short and quick hitting, which is fine, but that vertical, and we saw one example of it last week, but that's the explosiveness. If they're really going to go win a Super Bowl, think of the teams they're going to have to beat who are extremely explosive. That's the one thing I would say about Tampa Bay. Yeah.
Your thoughts on Brady so far and how he's played?
Tom is classically Tom, detail-oriented, highly efficient, has really done a great job of ingratiating himself with the team, with his teammates, allowing the head coach to peck at him and tell him that he's done a bad job. I thought that's super important. He's done a great job of getting ready to be successful. He's typical Tom. He's done nothing personally from a perspective of his personality, his incredible success, his, A-list life, all the things that would be off-putting to a group of people. He does a great job of ingratiating himself into that group, and they feel like they want to fight for him. So all that's been really positive. And by the way, Al, that's not easy. That is some real high-level expertise to be able to pull that off, and he has. As far as on the field, again, I speak to explosiveness and wonder, is it a combination of pass protection? Is it, I don't think it's arm strength. And then he's made some odd decisions for Tom. Interceptions that were just, just not up to his level. There are throws where you're like, whoa, that doesn't sound, or even that doesn't look or sound or even faintly remotely right. And so those are the concerns I have, is why aren't we a little more explosive? And why are these kind of strange interceptions showing up or missed throws that are unusual for Tom? And I'm not going to, I don't know the answer to that, but that's the concern I have about Tom is there's throws that aren't being made. There's throws that are being intercepted, and there's throws that aren't downfield and explosive that I hope that over the last 3 weeks that some of that stuff starts to get settled where that starts humming. And then the idea of Tom Brady winning another Super Bowl with Tampa Bay becomes a very much a reality. Not a reality, but a real chance to do it.
The word uncomfortable has come up several times, and you've kind of been touching on this. Over these last few games, can they get him comfortable to the point to where if they make the playoffs, they can definitely be dangerous?
Yeah, I mean, the comfort thing, I honestly, it shouldn't be about comfort. Certainly protection. Like, have him be comfortable with the protection, fine. Let's talk about it all day long. That is the number one thing we talked about at the beginning of the year. That's goes without saying. But when he's getting protected, like last week, it's still not explosive. With the talent on the field, I always think about who breaks the huddle. What kind of force do they come? Like the Kansas City Chiefs, they break the huddle. They got some guys, you know. when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers break the huddle, they got some guys. Maybe as many as anybody else. And that's why I see the explosiveness in Kansas City. I want to see that same explosion. And I've given the time. Look, there's a time to kind of get used to everybody. There's a new guy in town and all the rest of that stuff. These last 3 weeks, the thing I'm looking for is that, I'll say it very specifically, explosiveness in the offense. I want to see that ability to just score points, big vertical passing game, and can attack in a way that makes every defense in the league go, oh no. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? That's how they feel about playing the Chiefs. That's how they're starting to feel about playing the Bills, and that's how they should feel about playing the Bucs. They don't right now. I want that. I want every defense in the league to come into a game with the Bucs going, oh, I don't know. They should. We got to figure out how to get it done.
You're a Hall of Fame quarterback. When you look at that Bruce Arians offense, is this an offense you would have liked to have played in?
If Bruce Arians, that's another question I have. Why is it that Bruce Arians' offense should be big plays? It should be, no risk it, no biscuit, like all that stuff and the offense feels very contained. It feels very low risk, high efficiency. So I'm trying to figure that out. Bruce, are you authoring this? Is Tom both of you authoring this? Why is it that this offense doesn't feel as explosive as it needs to be? And you asked me a question about his offense. I'm just wondering why we're not seeing the no risk it, no biscuit. Like where is those big risk plays? And again, to play into late in the playoffs and get into Super Bowls, you're going to have to beat those teams that are already really good at that.
There's so much talk about the relationship between Arians and Brady, and you touched on this very briefly. Arians is very honest, and Tom hasn't said anything, but I would have thought that Bill Walsh would have been a little honest and certainly coached you hard.
I remember walking out of a meeting with Bill Walsh when he's called you into his office, and this is a metaphor, of course, but you walk out and you think, that went pretty well. And then you look down and you're bleeding, like there's blood. You're like, how did I feel like that went pretty well and I'm bleeding? Like that's how I think Bruce Arians would be, right? It comes off pretty collegial, pretty upbeat, but if there's blood to be had, you're gonna have it. And that's why I really loved in the first or second game when Tom threw the pick sixes in New Orleans. And after the game, Bruce was like, he missed them. And everyone's like, ooh, are you allowed to say that about Tom Brady? And I got the feeling, typical Tom, that's something else he handled with Bruce. Like, look, if we're going to hold everybody to try to do something really hard here and challenging, then I need to be held accountable as well. So I had a feeling that they'd already talked about that and developed that part of their relationship, because I'd seen that go on throughout the year. There were some prickly times a couple of weeks ago when Bruce is like, look, a quarterback's not playing well. I mean, I don't remember anyone saying that about Tom Brady. And so I
elsewhere, yeah.
I think that speaks to the relationship that they've built, because I doubt that Bruce would say that without having talked to Tom about how we're going to handle you not playing well. And I'm sure typical Tom would say, you know what, if I don't play well, coach, I'll stand for it. And I feel like that's been a real positive for the team, the fact that Bruce can call out Tom Brady.
What was it like for you when you found out you were being traded from the Buccaneers to the 49ers and you walked into the 49er facility and those first couple practices? What was the culture change like? What was it like in the building? I see you laughing.
You said you want 10 minutes. That's another hour. But I'll try to keep it brief. Look, there were some good people there in Tampa Bay, good human beings, players that I mean, James Wilder was the toughest football players ever around in my whole career. Ron Heller and Jimmy Giles, and there were good people, good players, but we did not have the superstructure of collective accountability and focus and leadership that we needed. And when I went from Tampa to San Francisco, it was as if it was literally polar opposites of what had been developed, was in place, the superstructure that was in place to help players, to build a platform so that players can go find out how good they can be. In Tampa, it was very difficult to show how good you can be because you didn't have a platform that was built by others and by leadership to be able to accomplish that. It was basically, felt like it was from scratch every week, where the 49ers had built an incredible infrastructure of accountability, camaraderie, collective socialization of responsibility, where we're in it for everybody. Nobody's better than anybody. And we're going to, no matter what big stars there are, Joe Montana or Jerry Rice or anything else. And it was a machine. They also had the West Coast offense, was way ahead of its time. Bill Walsh was concerned about players' health, wellness, how much hydration we had during practice, sleep, how we ate, how we traveled, what we ate when we traveled. Was it the best possible? Like, think about it. Like, the detail is just, you couldn't be more different than what was happening in Tampa Bay at that time. And I think Tampa Bay received some of that back when John Gruden went down there, because John and I started in San Francisco together in 1987 when he was essentially the offensive gopher, right? He was the one that was in charge of, doing the mimeographed playbooks and punching the three-hole spirals and putting me in he was doing the grunt work, and he and I would study together. So he learned all of that from there, and he brought that down there. And I think that was really obviously very beneficial.
One game I want to bring up from your time with the Bucs, and I'm sure you'll know right away, the Snow Bowl in Green Bay, all that snow there at Lambeau Field. And it was an extremely difficult game all the way around. And there was the one play where you were tackled at a snowbank. You go face first down, and legend has it, you thought you were going to suffocate. You thought you were going to die right there. Is that true?
That is absolutely true. Tim Harris drove me into the snowbank, which was the 30-yard line. And the only reason I still had the ball in my hand is because we were in all white, and I literally could not see anybody. I could not see my teammates. So Tim drove me into the ground, and because of the stupid face mask, I had this big Jim McMahon face mask that I thought was cool in college that I still see and go, what? I finally realized when I got to San Francisco, when I took it off, that it hit my shoulder pad. I couldn't see the right side of the field. It gets worse. But it got jammed in there, and it was all packed in there, and I was clawing at my face because I literally could not breathe. I couldn't get air, and I was clawing at my face. And Tim Harris goes, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "I can't breathe. He joined me in San Francisco later in his career, and we laughed about that game where we didn't have, we somehow forgot our winter, the long underwear and all this stuff like that. And so people, I had my suit, my dress suit that you traveled in underneath because I had nothing. I was like, I'm not going out there without something. And remember, that's the lowest, attendance. People probably think it was because of the Bucs. No, the Lambeau Field was always full. And the lowest attended game in the history of Lambeau Field, and still is, was that game because literally no one could get there. No one without a snowmobile or snowshoes or cross-country skis. You could not get to the game without one of those things. So they had a bunch of snowmobiles parked outside as the guys that got to the game.
Now
it was impassable. The roads were impassable. We had a plow go in front of our bus from the hotel, the old Holiday Inn down the street.
Right.
The plow had to go in front of the bus to make so the bus could get to the game. And I remember it was Lehman Bennett goes, "Hey, warm-ups are optional, boys." I never heard that before in a football game in my life. Warm-ups are optional.
Oh, I mean, you grew up in Connecticut. You played at BYU, so you played the weather before.
Yeah. But I just, I would appreciate it not being the whites. And then, of course, slips my name, another quarterback.
Lynn Dickey?
Lynn Dickey.
Yeah.
Lynn Dickey, everyone was wearing green, he's like, I got that figured out, and I remember seeing Lynn later. I was like, Lynn, I couldn't see anybody. Like the thing was blowing in my face. Yeah. And I look around, I'm like, so about the fourth, I'd say it was early second quarter. And I was probably 0 for 10 passing. And I was panicked because I was like, what if I'm the first quarterback in the history of the NFL that didn't complete a pass? I was figuring that was probably would be a record. So I told James Wilder, I said, James, look, we got to complete a pass. I'm going to drop back. Would you slip in front of me? And I'm just going to shovel it to you. So at least there was a completed pass. And I think I ended up completing a couple more, but I did shovel the first one to James Wilder just so we could, we were 1 for 11 for -4.
When you arrived in San Francisco, did you have any idea that you were headed for a Hall of Fame career?
I would say this. One of the most important things that happened to me in 1986, the year that I started, was Jimmy Ray at the end of the season, towards the end of the season. And Jimmy Ray was not a foolish man. He was a man he did not say anything that I think he didn't mean 100%. And he turned to me and he said, listen, I want you to know one thing. You can do this. And look, I was 3 and 12 or 3 and 13 that year. I mean, it would have been easy to say, you can't do this. But he was very clear. You can do this. And I kind of believed that myself. Did I think I could get to the Hall of Fame? I don't think that was in my mind at the time. My mind was, can I get the help I need here in Tampa Bay? Or if that's not going to work out, can I get someplace that could give me the platform to go see how good I could get? So, but I would say this, once I saw what was going on in San Francisco and the offense that they ran and the coaching that I was getting, and I saw what Joe was doing. Joe had already won 2 Super Bowls and already was in the Hall of Fame. And I saw what that looks like. I thought to myself, I want to try that. I think I can do that. That's a long way to go from somebody just thinking that, but that's what's so helpful when you do see somebody great. Taysom Hill's been able to watch Drew Brees, right? Aaron Rodgers got this watch Brett Favre, and it's super helpful when you witness it. You're like, oh, that's great. I get that now. That's the standard. Oh, that makes it a lot easier. So you don't wander around thinking, oh, I'm a really good player when you're really not.
So much talk about the weapons here in Tampa Bay and the fact that Mike Evans is here and everyone is just still kind of waiting for Mike Evans and Tom Brady to kind of get this thing going. How long did it take you and Jerry Rice to do that? And is this something that can come together in one season?
It does. It has its own timetable. I will tell you that Jerry and I's second season together was double the production than the first. So maybe that's the truth. And the problem with the Buccaneers right now is, I don't know if we hope Tom has that kind of time frame in his mind, right? Does he have another year to go get that, because there's no question that Tom's settling in and having a year and coming back a season and having, like, everybody settled in, it's gonna be better as long as Tom can be healthy enough to go perform. But so we know that Mike Evans is too talented. Tom is too smart not to get that full measure of it, but there is a process. Impossible to say the time. And I know Tom is trying to cut that time frame down, but maybe in the end, this season will be about setting up for what we can build off of, which is not what anybody wants right now. But maybe you're saying, Al, is the real question is it possible to pull this off in 12 padded practices and some meetings at the local park, and then a 16 game schedule to actually pull off beating the rest of the league? And you might be bringing up a really good point. Maybe that's just too high of a hill to climb for even Mike Evans and Tom Brady and everyone else that's so great on that team.
Final question for you. And again, I so appreciate you taking the time, but I've always wanted to know, because from what I've seen, you are the ultimate competitor. And I've met Joe Montana enough to know he is the ultimate competitor. How did you guys really get along?
I can be it's easy to be completely honest, because it's the truth of the matter is, I am not somebody, despite my competitiveness, I'm not a toxic personality. I like good relationships. And Joe's the same way. Joe would much rather laugh at himself than not laugh. Joe would much rather play a joke than make someone feel bad. It really wasn't his personality either. And so we competed against each other ferociously, but it never spilled. Strange. Just even saying that, we never, ever have had a cross word at each other. Never had an argument. Clearly we could have 1,000 times. Clearly we felt like doing it 1,000 times. It just wasn't a part of our collective personalities. And to this day, I'm very adamant about this, Al, that the winners of the SteveYoung versus Joe Montana whole drama for 4 years of me watching and 2 years of him watching were the 49ers. I mean, but the truth of the matter is, I would tell you that I played the best I'm ever going to play ever in my life was when I was competing with Joe Montana. And I can tell you, when he played in the 88 season, the 89 season, in the 90 season, when he was the MVP of the Super Bowl and MVP of the league, I think he would say the same thing. Whatever it was that I was the best of me, it came out. And so in that way, I'm always of the opinion in the league, even today, that people coddle the quarterback situation too much. If you don't have a toxic personality in the locker room as a quarterback or a couple of quarterbacks, let them go at it. Like, you're gonna get success. And even what's happening with Taysom Hill and Drew Brees, completely different ends of the spectrum on what they're doing, what they've accomplished, everything else. But there's no reason while Drew comes back, they just throw them together. They're not toxic personalities. Just force out the best of both of them, and see what comes. People want to say, well, who's the starter? Who's the backup? And George Seifert was that way. George became the next coach, said, I'm not doing this complicated thing. And I don't think it brought out the best. So the competition, as long as it's not toxic, can be a real benefit to the team and to the player. So that was my experience. And I'm not lying. And anyone who says that Joe and I argued is a liar. We did never. I cannot remember a time when we argued.
SteveYoung, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. Thanks for joining us.
You're great. Thanks. I feel like we've been together forever. You've seen the fact that you were with me in the Holiday Bowls at BYU and San Diego State, and you in San Diego. Well, we're getting up there.
I am. You look like you can still play.
I know, but it's fun. It's fun to think about the years and how it's fun for me to talk about them. So appreciate it. And all the people that I was in Tampa Bay with, despite the challenges, One of my favorite memories was the 1987 season when I had been traded to the 49ers and we came back to play the Bucs. And Joe was starting because I wasn't playing that week. And but they asked me, do you mind coming out at halftime and receiving the 86 MVP trophy for the Bucs? And one of my favorite trophies is the MVP of the 3-13, maybe the 2-14 Buccaneers. And thinking, honestly, I'll be honest with you, there was no more effort put in for that trophy than anything else that I ever accomplished in my whole life. It took every ounce of myself to try to figure out a way. And I just honor the guys I played with. Ron Heller, my offensive tackle, he had a sticker of an eyeball that he put on the back of his helmet. He says, this is my extra eye to keep an eye on you, because there was not only the eye of where the heck is SteveYoung going to go, but I always felt like there was an extra eye of concern and really just camaraderie. There was despite the rigor of what we were going through, there was a camaraderie amongst the guys that was like, man, this is tough, but we're in it together. And I just tipped my cap to everyone that was there at that time. And I always wished we could have a reunion. I don't know if 3-16 teams or 3-13 teams, 2-14 teams have reunions now, but I would appreciate it because of what we went through. And I want to say that to people of Tampa Bay, that I remember, and it's very meaningful to me, the time that I spent there, even though how difficult it really was.
Well, Steve, have a wonderful holiday and thanks again.
And we'll see everybody at the Super Bowl.
Perfect. Steve, thanks again.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.